Okay. Good morning. Thank you very much for being here. So we got a very interesting talk about Gen AI. That's a surprise for tax and legal function. If you want to anticipate the future, you need to create it. It's from Peter Drucker. So this is what we're going to do. We're not going to anticipate. We're going to create the future with Gen AI and with thought leaders in legal and in tax. And that's what we're going to do. So no more introduction because we got lots of things to say and to explain to you about what is happening in these three organizations. So I have here on my left Georges Dirani, who's the Group GEC, General Counsel of BNP Paribas. Thank you, Georges, for being here. Alexia Scott, who's the Head of Tax as VP at L'Oréal. And I got a pleasure to get my partner, Sandeep Agrawal, who was in charge of Global Alliance, Tech Alliance for our PwC Legal Business Solution practice. We got lots of questions. I will start with you, Alexia, and I will say exactly the same question to the three of you. It's about what's your vision within your function about Gen AI?
Thank you, Olivier. Well, you know, at L'Oréal, and it's the neighbor of the stand today, we have a quote which is in our DNA, which is saisir ce qui commence. In English, it's to grab what begins. And this is fully applicable to AI. So that's exactly what happened in AI. And in tax, I see three scopes in which we have to be involved. The first one is the business scope. We have to know what happens in business. In order, as business partner, we have to understand, to analyze the consequences and the potential consequences, for example, in terms of value creation, for transfer pricing, for example. The second scope is in finance. If finance use AI in the processes, in the data, we have to understand it to consider again the consequences in tax. And last but not least, is AI in tax for tax. We will deep dive on it. But it is AI in our processes, AI in our research and studies. So it's really an important scope that we have to invest in today.
Okay, thank you, Alexia. Georges, for BNP Paribas, your vision?
Do you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes. I think for lawyers, if I have a vision for lawyers, it would be to deeply improve the accuracy and the pertinence of the legal advice in a fastly changing world. If we look at it this way, I would say this would be what we expect from the Gen AI doing. This being said, the risk is that the huge speed of the transformation of the AI would lead us to be in a position that we don't catch up with the progress. So I would imagine that the lawyering in the future is going to be deeply transformed. We could think that we would have a sort of augmented lawyering as well, because the transformation of the way of workings are going to be huge, while being in control with a huge generational responsibility as well. This, I would say, are the markings of what I believe Gen AI is going to do to lawyers.
So basically it's going to be, you're going to have to find the right mix between human and machine so that machine is accelerating the processes, but human is also working on the high value and the control of the output of the machines. That's what you're doing at BNP Paribas?
Yeah, I think that we should not lose control, because in a very complex world we live in, if lawyers lose control, the automation, we'll see that the risks are an important automation of the decision making, which could make or render wrong decisions. That's why I think lawyers or tax people, I mean, it's all advisory people, need to be in control to have an adapted response to the threats or to the risks we're confronted to.
Yeah, it will be linked to knowledge and data management that something we'll talk about in a
Yes.
few minutes. Sandeep, about the vision, or two visions maybe, the vision of PwC, because what is interesting that PwC not only advise and work with clients, but also PwC is implementing Gen AI within the firm, so that's interesting. And then because you're in charge of global alliance, maybe the vision of some tech alliance about what will happen in a maybe couple of years, if you know, it's a very long-term couple of years with Gen AI. Sandeep?
Let me start by saying, if I knew what's happening in a couple of years, I'll not be sitting here. I'll be out there. So nobody knows what's going to happen in the next 2 to 3 years because AI is evolving every week, every month. I think the important thing for us to really think about is, look, AI is here for real. It is important for us to embrace AI and understand the nuances of it, understand what it will do good, where are the protocols and guardrails to use it. From a PwC legal perspective, of course, in my role as market-facing, it is important to understand that, hey, what are the right technology which our clients would really like and understand? Because legal department is one of the major departments which will adopt AI for like a true sense, because it has huge amount of data, huge amount of documents, and generative AI is really, really good when there's data and document in there. And it's one of the first department when there will be disruption in the market because of the real good use of AI. I think internally to us, within our own organization, we are close to 4,000 lawyers in 100 countries. And it is important before we go and talk to our clients and say, hey, generative AI is real, we have started using AI internally to our own organization. We have close to 10,000 people in both tax and legal currently using AI for this. But I think more importantly to understand, we will experiment with different forms of generative AI. We will try and see what works and what doesn't work, and then embrace it for future.
So 10,000 people within PwC are already working and using Gen AI. Okay, you will explain to us how you implemented this with 10,000 people. Before we go to data management, and I know you got a lot to say about this, I wanted to talk about concrete actions. We're not in 23, we're in 24, so lots of things have been done. Maybe to begin with, Alexia, on what did you do with your function to create awareness, to create expectations about what could be positive and maybe some negative things? What are the things you do concretely within L'Oréal?
So we are just at the beginning of the journey. But as we see AI in tax, in 4 ways. We can see AI as a proactive mode, so in our research, in the use of data, etc. We can see AI in a reactive mode to organize defense in front of tax administration. And we are studying some use case on predictive mode. This comes from US. I mean, the fact that you have a litigation, you don't know what is the issue. And for the tax people here, to evaluate the more likely than not chances of success or failure, we could use AI also. So this is the vision, but then how do we go there? So we start the journey with all the tax function, inspired by the cascading organized by L'Oréal. So AI is everywhere already at L'Oréal, so you can see in the other, you can visit L'Oréal here. We have a governance team and a cascading of knowledge. So a few weeks ago, we have a kickoff of the expansion of this knowledge for tax people. So we dedicated one entire day to AI. We started slowly, smoothly with AI generic presentation. Then we went to AI seen by L'Oréal, then to finance. And in the afternoon, we spent an entire afternoon with supported by PwC and you to deep dive into a tax game to be solved with our brain, with Google, with ChatGPT, L'Oréal ChatGPT, etc. And it has been an amazing afternoon because we really demystify AI. And after this afternoon, I think all our tax people want to play with AI. And this is really important. To upskill people, only 10% is learning. 30%, 30% is practicing and training. 70% it will be in the job use, day-to-day use. So we started with the learning, we started with the training, and the more you train, the more we will be able to use AI. To demystify it, just remember when you started using internet. You didn't buy a big book for internet for the dummies to understand technology that is behind. So the same for AI. I try to buy a book to understand, but what I want is to use it. So to use it, just train and train and train and demystify it.
Yeah, demystify it, that's very important. And we'll talk about the impact of whether they're positive or negative on tax. Georges, what about BNP Paribas? What did you do concrete action in the last 12 months on Gen AI?
Yes, we have organized, first of all, ourselves in a way which would be consistent with what we would use, how we use AI, and how this would be beneficial to the day-to-day work of lawyers. We have been organizing ourselves in a totally different manner. We transformed the organization to have the cross-organization, the transversal, if we use the French word, to transversal organization to be in contact with the other specialism and the geographies and the métier as we go. So this has been a huge transformation for us because we created specialism platforms to deal transversally with the important complex issues in particular. And one of those is a platform dedicated, we called it the Digital Legal Center, which concentrate all over the 1,800 lawyers in the 50 countries of the bank, of the group, to work together on AI issues. Then that was the first step for us to have harmonized solutions put everywhere at the same time. So this has been instrumental.
Because your vision was it's not vertical or silos, it's really transversal to all legal department within this
Absolutely.
1,800 lawyers that you
Absolutely, absolutely, because you cannot, in the fast-changing, complex world we live in, reinvent the wheel every morning. Then you do need not only coordinated and harmonized solutions, but also creative solutions, and this would come only by an agile, transversal kind of organization, and not
That's the
silo.
platforms. Okay.
That's the platforms. Okay. And when it gets back to what we do on Gen AI, then it came naturally afterward. The involvement, of course, the group has been involved as such, generally speaking, and we had a huge number, a big number of use cases where we adapted from the contracts, how we could use Gen AI into the production, but also how we could use AI in improving the knowledge, the information, the knowledge management. We'll talk about it also later. Also we are trying to touch on Gen AI on litigation to see if we can have some improvements in the pattern we can look around. It has been mainly around having more information to make better decisions, but this we will talk about as well, because there are danger to those too much automation in this field, obviously.
And also in regulatory, because regulatory in your industry is quite big.
Sorry, it's the information, it's regulatory, of course, because it's the basis for lawyers to bring information to the table, of course.
So Sandeep, explain to me how it was possible to make 10,000 people again to use Gen AI within PwC. What's the recipe? You got a magic wand like Harry Potter, or you got something?
I will for sure at some point. Look, it was not easy. I think we started using generative AI last year in February, when it was very, very new. We had access to the latest models from some of our alliance partners. And we started saying, look, start embracing and trying to see what the output is. It is not mandatory for you to use AI, but at least experiment for both internal purposes, but also for our client-facing users who are on a daily basis giving advice. Imagine there are 3 or 4 major use cases for lawyers. One, if you have huge amount of documents or contracts, if you're drafting a document or redlining a contract, generative AI is really, really good today. And that's one of the big use cases where people came and said, fantastic output. Horizon scanning, understanding of changes of laws around the world. We really tried generative AI. It used to be time-stamped before and says, hey, only up to date until certain date. That is changing and evolving quite a bit. So now AI is getting better in terms of latest regulations and doing that. 3, I think just using day-to-day use cases. We have a lot of people who came back and said, Sandeep, I used AI to take my kid to bed and read poems, because every day I thought, hey, use a character, use a holiday destination and create a story. And doing that, people started using a lot of it. Today, just before coming here, I looked into the data. We have 1 million prompts every month on our Gen AI platform for tax and legal. And there are, every month over 10,000 documents which is getting embedded into our model. And that is really, really making it really agile, because we have people over 34 countries actually today in PwC using AI for tax and legal.
Okay, so I want to talk about knowledge management and data management. As we say, garbage in, garbage out. We cannot change the LLM, the large language model. That's the foundation model. We cannot do it. It's only the Microsoft, OpenAI, and Google of the world who are managing those, and Claude and all those guys, and Mistral, to be fair with the French market. And maybe we're going to implement SLM, small language model, and domain. That's very important. How do you see the work in knowledge and in data management? The data comes from the business and from finance. For instance, in the contract, Georges, you have lots of data. They're not legal data. They could be technical, finance, business data, and obviously legal and compliance data. So it's not data that you are managing, So how do you try to organize the knowledge and the data so that at the end of the day, you're using L'Oréal's data and BNP Paribas data and not some data from all around the place? How do you anticipate this, Alexia?
So on data, I will insist on 2 kinds of data. First is regulations that you started speaking about that, and those one are outside of L'Oréal. But we have to organize the access to the external data, and depending on the AI, we don't have a really well localized data access. So for example, you go on ChatGPT, you will have a worldwide access, but you will not have deep dived information coming from France or deep dive from UK, etc. So this is something which is important. I don't know if we will speak again about confidentiality, but this is an important topic also about risk. But then on the other data, all the data is coming from finance, from accounting. The global move that we observe at L'Oréal is that we are not anymore organized by silos, right? It's not accounting, finance, tax, etc. Now we are more and more organized by streams, P2P streams, very horizontal streams on which it is an end-to-end process. And then the access to the information starts at the beginning, is transferred to the second one, etc. And at the end, of course, tax, because we are the last blocker before the tax administration. So we need to have clean data from the beginning. So what is needed is a global governance on AI and a global governance on data. So we have now data officers, dedicated data on finance, and we have tax has to be involved in those processes to be sure that the data is clean from the beginning to the end process, which is the audit and potentially the litigation. So we need dedicated people to that, infused by this organization and those vertical, horizontal processes.
And you see those people being part of finance, accounting, tax, cross-function?
It's not anymore tax or finance or accounting. It is a process.
It's a okay.
Yes, and the big advantage of it is that if you have someone that has been working, for example, in the P2P process, and is bored after a while, he can move to a O2C process, and with the same kind of mindset, which is having clean data from the beginning to the end, and having managed data or analyzed data with AI from the beginning to the end. So we don't speak anymore about métier like that in silos.
Yeah, so
we work
anticipate
horizontally.
having
Yes.
data governance managers or officers
By streams.
for order
by-
to cash
exactly.
or source to pay
Yeah.
processes.
Exactly.
Okay, okay. Georges, what about BNP Paribas and legal?
The huge organization we're in, unfortunately, does not allow to have a total project like yours, which is all over the place. It's a little bit different, but the idea is the same, globally speaking, at the group level. And I'm going to talk only about legal this time, in my case, and the information, the data we need to be able to feed the Gen AI. First of all, we need to have a very clear modus operandi on how, and the discipline on how, where to put the data, how to deal with it, and the risk would be to have at the end of the day non-adequate data and information which is incomplete or outdated. So the quality, as you said it, I mean the quality of the data is of the utmost importance. So we have defined owners within legal to the data, and we are extremely disciplined in putting all the data in. This is the project, at least. Hopefully, we're going to be disciplined in putting the data in the right places in order to be able to connect it to the rest in a way which it is usable by this. And in banks, last but not least, the confidentiality and the secret, the banking secrecy, as you know it, is of the utmost importance as well, and we can't ignore it. And we need to deal with internal, external, in an extremely disciplined and in extremely organized way to avoid any leaks.
I still got another question for you, Alexia and Georges, about what are you going to do with the content? Because if we got the LLM and we got maybe some of your SLM and specific knowledge management, and then we're going to have the Gen AI that will going to generate content, new content. And is this content going to go back to your knowledge database, or how are you going to try to update the content so it's not always the same content that at the end of the day will give the same output in 24, in 25, in 26, or it's only the machine who is creating content and not human beings anymore in terms of innovation, creativity, and other things? How do you anticipate being able to update the content that will go back to your knowledge database, data lake, how you call it, whatever you call it?
No, that's a big issue we have, for as far as I know, we didn't solve already, because the starting point of it is confidentiality. Let's imagine that I put there is tax people here, so let's imagine that I put the P&L of L'Oréal in ChatGPT. Let's say in December, and I ask ChatGPT to calculate my effective tax rate. For sure, ChatGPT can do it. But then, for sure, everybody will know the P&L of L'Oréal in December before the closing and before the announcement of the financial results. So I can do that. So that's why also ChatGPT created a kind of privatized ChatGPT. But the limit of it is the up-to-date information. So even if I work and I try to do the effective tax rate of L'Oréal within the L'Oréal ChatGPT, again, I will give information within L'Oréal. And then if I give back the effective tax rate, everybody will know about the effective tax rate of L'Oréal before the closing. So I come back to the same issue. So for the moment, the feedback, I would say, of the data that's coming out from AI to the AI is really an issue of confidentiality. So we are thinking about having maybe closed tax data lakes But you know, this use case is quite has to be worked, because we need first financial closed data lake, maybe inside of this data lake, tax data lake. So it's just the beginning of the story.
Georges, how do you anticipate updating
I
this?
think I've touched a little bit on it very quickly. Is the discipline? I mean, when you look into the three categories, you do have the contracts category, of course, and the contracts you would need. Well, at the same time, you improve your own contracts with new regulations, new issues you would like to put in there. You need to have this absolutely important, huge discipline to be able to put the information where it belongs, for it to be processed in a way which is useful and always, up to, not only up to date, but which is absolutely correct as well. When you look into the regulatory, the advisory, it's more difficult, obviously, because you don't have a stabilized regulatory. Perhaps you do have a set of regulation, but it's not processed the same way than contracts as far as the production is concerned. And last is the litigation, of course. And litigation is a totally different issue. Of course, we do have a set of information which are put into the machine internally, of course, and we could make use of it. But this is much harder because of the confidentiality issues, but also because you don't have two totally similar litigations like in the patterns of the contracts. I mean, it's much more difficult to put in place.
Sandeep, going back to your key figures, because for me I struggle with the key figures. 10,000 people using GenAI within PwC, 1 million prompts a month, 10,000 documents uploaded per month, and we are handling our clients' data. We are audit firm, consulting firm, law firm, tax firm. So these data are quite confidential. So what did you put in place so that we can say to Alexia and to Georges, don't worry, everything's under control? You need to convince, because trust between PwC and its clients is key in our world. So what did you do?
I think it's a brilliant question. This is the question which everybody asks us. It is, as you said, it is very important to aggregate data, but it is also very important to classify data. And when we look at our data internal to PwC and our clients' data, we make sure we classify in different categories. What kind of data is absolutely confidential, which can't go into LLM model at all, and which are personal identifiable information, which we cannot put into large language model at all. Whether it is a closed model or open model, it doesn't matter. What we do though is we classify data on the basis of information which are confidential but does not have personal identifiable information. And we make sure we make them in a closed model in the loop where it doesn't go back to OpenAI or any other large language model. It is a closed model where the clients have separate instance ring-fenced data where the data doesn't move out. And this way we process those information and ask questions. Then we go a layer below that, which is open data, public data, which can go into large language model. It is really, really important that, when you classify those data, your people know what kind of data is going in and data going out. And hence we have created a data governance team to make sure on project to project basis, there will be a data classification and data governance. And of course, without really going into detail, it is really, really important for people to understand and get the training and reskilling on that. Because if you don't train your people, they won't understand what kind of data goes in and goes out. And a training program around that is really, really critical for all the employees. And they do not get access to the models without going to this training and the certification program around that. Also, one-time training is not going to help. So you have to have a periodic change in terms of how data is moving and what kind of information is going into the system.
We say that what the user is doing with GenAI is training, at the end of the day, the foundation model. So is it the same the way our people at PwC are using Gen AI tools, whether it's Harvey or Copilot or Leah or etc., is it training at the end of the day eventually the foundation model, or do we I don't know, block the data so that it's only for us and not for the OpenAI and Google and all those big firms of the world?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It is not at all training the foundation model, because we have ring fence instances where the data resides within PwC. It can't go out. And look, it is very, very important to know for the complex departments like tax and legal, one foundation model is not going to solve all the problem. Because these are complex documents and complex data. So you need to have multi-model data, layer at the back end in terms of LLMs, and also the ability to make sure that the data doesn't go out of the residency of the instance we have. So we absolutely have one ring fence instance for PwC. What we also do is a lot of clients come to us and say, hey, we don't want PwC to also retain our data. And hence, can you create ring fence model for our own organization for our clients? And that's an ability we have built where we can create a ring fence data model for our clients where the data will reside there. Of course, you will have access rights, but the training data would come to PwC as well.
Okay, thank you. I want to talk about people, which at the end of the day is core and it's very important. As Georges mentioned at the beginning, Gen AI is great, but we need to have people to control and to maybe work on more strategic and complex situation. Three questions for you. Job displacement. Do you think that we're going to fire tax lawyers and fire lawyers because of Gen AI implementation? Short term, long term. Second question is about what are you doing in terms of augmented lawyers or augmented tax lawyers? Are you doing in terms of upskilling? Do you have anything at L'Oréal and at BNP Paribas that you put in place? And we would like to hear from you concretely. What do you do? And then what are the new roles? Because we talk about sometimes displacement, but we don't talk about the new roles. You spoke about the data governance officer across the processes, but do you envision to have maybe more non-lawyers within the legal function that are doing, I'm not going to influence you, other things? So those three questions: job displacement, about upskilling, and about new jobs, new role. Alexia?
Well, for the moment, no, we don't have any project of displacement of tax people. Totally the opposite. We have a really big ambition for upskilling, and not only in tax, but all around the group. We really want to invest in upskilling of people. But what is new is that for this upskilling, you need soft skills. This is quite new, because I think in the past, you could have really good experts with hard skills, and you respect the experts because of this hard skill. What we want now and what we need now is people with soft skills who are curious, open-minded, new mindset, and open to new technology, AI, etc. So even when we hire new people, we look for those soft skills, which is quite new to hire new tax people. Second, we increase the knowledge, yes, and we have a big program which is the skills of the future at L'Oréal. So all the functions have worked on the skills of the future. It has been declined in finance, and it has been declined in tax also. And of course, in those skills of the future, we have the AI, knowledge on AI, etc. So we will train all our tax people on AI.
Are you allowed to say how many skills of the future you identified?
500.
For L'Oréal as a
group? For group. So
okay.
All functions included. And if we deep dive into finance, it's around 70.
70 within finance,
yes, within finance.
Which is finance,
and
accounting,
included
tax, and
hard
legal.
skills and soft skills. And for example, project management is a skill for the future.
Yeah.
So and this is really key. And with this new knowledge, I think we have to have new tax people, more generalist tax people, and both will have to have knowledge in technology and knowledge in litigation. The risk is maybe a fragmentation in the future, that we will need maybe more tax knowledge-oriented dedicated people and tax litigation dedicated people. But for example, a country tax manager or a country tax leader will have to have both.
Okay. Before I open to Q&A, in one minute, Georges, about these very important questions about people.
I see that time is limited for me. They took off my microphone as well. Thank you. Yes, in a nutshell, we have responsibility. You talked about people vis-à-vis our employees and lawyers to bring them to the next level in doing a certain work very seriously. And we don't joke with those things, you know. And indeed, there is a risk of obsolescence, in particular at the younger lawyers level, where in the past we used to do a lot of things to learn which were linked to paper, to cases, to reading a lot. Now, if AI could produce a memo or a contract, etc., without the younger lawyers to train, then it's about training mainly, and the same we have had soft skills and a lot of we called it the program of the lawyers of the future to make it, and we had like 30 skills as well. And one other thing. We try to make it that the lawyers are not intimidated by AI. This is very important, because if lawyers are intimidated by AI, we've already lost. Yeah. So we've been working around the mentoring. It's very important. The mentoring is going to be central to what we're doing in bringing the younger lawyers and to bring the new skills and young lawyers to do work which is done by older lawyers today. Then probably younger lawyers are going to take the place of intermediate lawyers, contrary to what we think, because of this acceleration of the possibilities. So all this, it's the start of the brainstorming, of course, but we are working on it extremely seriously. Sorry.
All right. Any questions from the audience here? Any particular questions? I got thousands of questions here, so if you don't have any questions, I got more. Yes.
Hi, I have a question for Sandeep. You mentioned that you have a lot of information with PII. How do you use that in your training data? So do you just not use it at all? Do you anonymize it? What's the process there?
So at the moment, we don't. Within PwC, use PII data at all. We are hearing few companies looking at anonymizing that data. But the reality is, as you anonymize the data, the PI data is lost any which ways. So the documents will be there, but there is a lot of companies now trying to absolutely scrape or anonymize PI data. At the moment, within PwC, we don't.
A follow-up?
And also for L'Oréal and BNP, how do you deal with PII in your training data?
Explain PI.
Personal identifiable information. Personal identifiable information like your name, phone number.
So we have a full organization on PI. We have a dedicated officer, split it by function in finance, so it is really highly controlled at functional level and also at country level and geographical level. So I don't see any, for the moment, it's really well organized. It's a bigger organization compared to legal and tax. Just to give you an example, we have a PI correspondent in each country, in each function.
Same.
Okay, same thing. Other questions? So I got the interesting questions about it's not only consulting firm or audit firm or company that are working on GenAI. Nice people from administration, from authorities, are also improving themselves and augmented themselves with the GenAI. How do you see the relationship in terms of tax control or investigation or litigation between those authorities and your companies or other companies in the future?
Yes, this is clearly in the vision of AI in tax. first in a proactive mode. I mean, if we use AI in our financial process, etc., we will have to be able to explain those processes to the tax administration in case of audit. We will not be able to say, well, you know, the reconciliation has been done by AI, just go for it and just ask ChatGPT or whatever. We will have to be able to explain and to give information. I don't know if we will have to go and give algorithm, for example, but why not, maybe. So this is more in a proactive mode, and then in the defensive mode. We start to observe some e-audit, for example, in some countries just following e-invoicing. So tax authorities are using e-invoicing to start their own analysis, their own self-assessment. They come to us and say, well, we think we have an error in your tax return. And then they reverse the proof process, and you have to defend, and you have to prove that you did the correct calculation. How do you do that? So you have to recalculate everything, and you have to, again, to defend yourself in front of tax authorities. And this is a trend that we observe more and more in countries. That's why we have organized a big program, which is called e-compliance, which covers accounting, tax, all data related, digitalized data in the relationship with the tax administration. This is really key.
But then it will go in two ways. You will have to answer to technology and data, what happened in the tool or in your AI tools, and also answer about the technical, meaning the tax expertise. So it's both that you need to have in every litigation, right?
Exactly. So we come back to the description you said about the possible fragmentation of tax people. We may need people who will be able to explain exactly what happened in our data and the processes, etc. And we may need people to answer to just regulatory or, I don't know, transfer pricing cases or methodology. But the gold will be in the hands of tax people who are capable to explain both technology and litigate on the regulations.
Okay. Georges, for BNP Paribas?
Just not to repeat what you said, because there are a lot of similarities, obviously, in the methodology. And to avoid repeating, what I would say is the decision-making and the judgment call needs to be always there, made by and to correct what has been made by the machine, by the Gen AI. Second is we live in a world where we have different legal systems, completely different. Then you need to also to adapt to those. Then if one solution for one regulator or one jurisdiction does not work necessarily in another jurisdiction, then there are adaptations to be made as well. And the human judgment call, what gets out to the rest of the world, is one of the main challenges we probably we're going to be facing with the Gen AI, and how to control it and who to control it. I mean, you can't just send raw data to the external world without doing a certain work judgment on it. Is it accurate? Is it done? Is it many other questions? Then this is the big challenge, I would say.
Okay. Finally, Sandeep, how do you see this topic about the relationship between the companies and the authorities that are becoming great now at using AI and Gen AI?
I think, again, I'll go back to the data thing. It is important to get ready with your data. Regulators are coming at your doors. They know what you have, what you don't have. I think it is important to classify data. Also, it is very, very important to work with the regulators right now to understand what they're looking in the horizon, what kind of data they will look in near future, and in what form and shape they would ask that data. And I think it is essential for all organizations at the moment to make sure, work with the regulators and understand what they're looking at and get the data classification done.
All right. Thank you very much. You are at VivaTech 2024. There are lots of things to see around. We got L'Oréal here and BNP Paribas right here, and PwC is just here. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.